Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something totally mind-bending. We're going to bridge two worlds that honestly seem like complete opposites. On one hand, you've got the ancient, dust-filled battlefields of the Bhagavad Gita, and on the other, the highly mathematical, super complex whiteboards of modern quantum physics. Our goal here is actually pretty simple. Well, kind of simple. We're going to decode the ultimate nature of reality and figure out who, or maybe what, we actually are. So let's start with a little visualization. Imagine you're sitting in a pitch-black movie theater. The film starts and boom, you instantly get completely lost in the drama, right? You're tracking the action, the shifting characters, those brilliant colors flashing right before your eyes. You are entirely engrossed in the experience of the movie. But have you ever stopped, even for a split second, to notice the blank, unmoving movie screen that's actually holding it all? Probably not. I mean, we completely ignore it because we're just so captivated by the changing images. Keep this visualization in the back of your mind, because it's literally the perfect key to unlocking one of the oldest mysteries of human existence. Now, if we look at chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, it introduces two really foundational terms to help explain this concept. First, there's Kshetra, which translates to the field. And then there's Kshetrajna, which means the knower of the field. Let's translate this into everyday tech terms so it clicks a bit better. Think of Kshetra, your physical body, your senses, your emotions, your ego, as a computer's physical hardware. It's the nuts and bolts, the machinery. On the flip side, Kshetrajna is the soul. It's the pure consciousness that operates and observes the whole thing. It's the invisible software. And you know how this works. The hardware does all the interacting and reacting, but it is utterly, completely lifeless without that software observing and directing the show. This directly echoes that theater metaphor we just talked about. There's this really powerful quote from our sources that describes someone who has literally never seen a movie theater before. Imagine they walk in while a film is playing. To them, the screen just looks like a magical window into a changing, chaotic reality. Their first reaction is total, unquestioning belief in the movie. It's only when the projector turns off that the screen itself becomes obvious. And that right there, that's the movie of our daily lives. Our physical struggles, our heavy emotions, the whole material world around us, it's an illusion called Maya, and it completely hides the screen of Brahman, which is our true, unchanging soul. You are not the movie. You are the screen it plays on. The absolutely crucial point here is realizing the difference between the experiencer and the observer inside of you. So the experiencer is completely tied to your physical body and mind. It's chaotic. It's constantly riding those huge highs of excitement and plunging into the deep lows of anxiety. But actually, right behind all that chaos sits the observer. And the observer is perfectly still. In physics terms, it possesses zero entropy, meaning zero disorder, none whatsoever. It's the eternal energy of your true inner self, and it's just simply watching the drama of the experiencer unfold without ever getting disturbed by it. So you might be wondering, well, if we are this eternal, perfectly peaceful observer, why do we feel so stressed out all the time? Ancient texts actually share a pretty wild parable to explain this. It's the story of the vegetarian tiger. Picture this. A pregnant tigress attacks a flock of sheep, gives birth on the spot, and then tragically dies. So the baby tiger is raised entirely by the sheep. It eats grass, it bleats, and it 100% believes it is a sheep. It's not until a wild tiger comes along and forces the cub to look at its own reflection in the water that it finally realizes its true, limitless nature. And honestly, we're exactly like that cub. Our supreme soul totally forgets its true identity when it gets trapped inside a physical body. We mistake the chaotic, stressful movie of material desires for our actual self. Okay, let's switch gears and step into the modern physics lab for a second. The Bhagavad Gita boldly claims that our ultimate essence, the Atman, is indestructible. It doesn't die, it just discards old bodies to transition into new forms. Sound familiar? Because it perfectly mirrors the first law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. It only transforms. If you burn a log of wood, the energy isn't suddenly gone. No way. It just becomes heat, light, and ash. In the exact same way, ancient wisdom is telling us that death is literally just a phase transition for our energy. But of course, here's the catch. Energy doesn't just sit perfectly tidy forever. It degrades. In physics, the second law of thermodynamics measures entropy, which is essentially a fancy word for disorder. Just think of an uncleaned teenager's bedroom, right? Left entirely alone, it naturally drifts into absolute chaos. Well, our minds act the exact same way.
We experience massive mental entropy when we're continuously bombarded by all these worldly worries, endless desires, and outcomes we simply can't control. Obsessing over the past or freaking out about the future creates this massive karma energy leak. It just burns straight through our internal fuel while leaving us completely stuck in neutral.
Now, let's take a bit of a quantum leap here. Have you heard of the observer effect? In modern physics, it proves that particles at the subatomic level actually exist in a blurry cloud of multiple potential states simultaneously, right up until a conscious observer looks at them. The very act of observing literally forces the particle to pick a single reality. It's a profound, game-changing shift from classical physics. But watch how perfectly this translates to the ancient texts we've been talking about. Remember chapter 13? Okay, so the material world, the field, or kshetra, acts exactly like that cloud of unformed quantum potential. And it's our pure consciousness, the knower, that acts as the conscious observer. It's exactly like the projector turning on to hit that movie screen. Our consciousness interacts with the material field, and boom, it collapses all that chaotic potential into one defined reality. I mean, think about that for a second. Ancient mystics were describing the fundamental mechanics of quantum reality thousands of years before the math even existed. That is just incredible. To ground all this high-level quantum science, the Mundaka Upanishad gives us this really beautiful organic metaphor. It's the famous parable of the two birds. Imagine a massive ancient tree. Sitting on its branches are two identical birds. Now, the first bird is completely restless. It's darting from branch to branch, greedily devouring sweet fruits, and then squawking and crying out every time it bites into a bitter one. But higher up in the tree sits the second bird. It doesn't eat, it doesn't hop around, it simply watches the first bird in perfect, grounded stillness. What's so profound here is that these two birds, they're actually just two sides of ourselves. The restless bird represents the jiva, that's our individual self. It's the experiencer who's constantly reacting to all the sweet and bitter fruits of daily life. Meanwhile, the silent bird is the Atman, our higher self. It's the knower, the untouched observer. And the texts teach us that true freedom only really happens when that restless experiencer finally looks up, recognizes the silent observer within, and realizes they were never two separate beings to begin with. Which brings us to this incredibly simple, yet powerful number, 0. In thermodynamics, the third law states that as a system reaches absolute zero, entropy drops to an absolute minimum, and perfect thermal equilibrium is achieved. Everything just settles. Well, in ancient spiritual terms, this exact same state of absolute zero is called moksha. It's the ultimate state, where all the karmic noise, all that emotional chaos, and every bit of mental agitation drops to absolute zero. You become the perfect observer. The movie projector finally turns off, and you realize you are, and always have been, the pristine, untouched screen. So I want to leave you with a provocative thought to carry with you today. Next time you go out into the world and you're facing the chaos, the stress, and all the daily drama of your life, stop and ask yourself, are you the changing characters reacting on the screen? Or are you the unchanging, silent screen itself? When you really think about it, perhaps the mystic sitting deep in meditation and the physicists calculating quantum mechanics aren't so different after all. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.